Hi, everybody. Please join me in welcoming my guest today, Nicky Booyens. We're discussing on how to fuel an ultra race from both a nutrition and a hydration perspective, with a specific touch today on PVM products. Nicky doesn't need a lot of introduction, but I'll take you through it regardless. She races for Team Mutual Safes. She's a PVM-sponsored athlete. Nicky is probably one of the most experienced ultra racers in the world, which gives her a lot of credibility in multiple disciplines. She doesn't just ultra in one, she ultras in cycling, trail running, adventure racing, and weekend after weekend. In terms of some of the big events she's done that you may be familiar with, she's done most of the Freedom Challenge short events, short as in 400, 500, 600 kilometers. On trail running, 10 Munga races. She's done the hour. She's done Mac 200 miler runs, World Championships adventure racing in Reunion, adventure racing in Argentina, multiple large expedition races in South Africa. And at the moment, she's busy building toward the adventure racing World Championships in October in South Africa, in Kucha. So, ladies and gentlemen, fewer, more experienced people to give us some perspectives on how to fuel and get through this kind of lifestyle, never mind just a race. So, Nicky, welcome. Welcome to this conversation. I'm looking forward to hearing your views on this topic.
Hi, thanks so much.
So let's kick off talking about a couple of principles of nutrition. How do you approach this? Are you very scientific? Do you do spreadsheets, read lots of science articles that are peer reviewed, or do you just go on gut feel?
I'm not too scientific. I've been doing this kind of for so long that I've kind of got my own plan that I'm kind of working with. I've been working closely with the PVM team, so I am becoming a little more scientific in my approach to racing the ultras. But I'm not too much of a numbers person. I don't calculate how much I'm burning, how much I must put in. I generally go with gut feel. Yeah, and it seems to work.
So how does your planning change in terms of what we'll get into a few specifics a little bit later on, but let's say you're going for a Saturday morning ride of 2 to 3 hours, as opposed to a Cape Epic stage race, which is 5 hours or maybe more of high intensity. How do you kind of look at this and you say, today is going to be high intensity and I need to take more carbs, or it's going to be a long, slow day, I don't need to take any carbs. How do you approach different types of durations and intensities?
Yeah. Well, a 2 to 3 hour ride, of say medium intensity, I would probably just eat my my PVM millipap for breakfast, and then probably just have a bottle of Octane with me, and take a bar gel just in case I feel I need it. Compared to something like an epic stage race, well, I would still probably try to eat my millipap in the morning. Hopefully, I would take it with. I would definitely have my millipap in the morning, PVM millipap, and then I would definitely have a lot more Octane and gels, more complex, high intensity nutrition with me, and then try eat as much real food as well at the water points. Try get little bits of real food in, because your stomach will start to get hungry. It will start to feel empty, and it will start to need real food in it.
Training to eat and drink. Now, you race or participate frequently on weekends, so I almost get the impression you don't ever train. You just kind of go out and enjoy yourself on weekends in races. How do you train yourself to eat and drink into a habit of eating every hour or every 30 minutes? Check your Garmin, what the kilojoules are, or every 30 minutes set an alarm for eating and drinking. How do you train yourself to when you should eat and when you should drink, and what you should eat when?
I definitely don't set any reminders or alarms. I generally try to make sure I'm eating or drinking at least having something to eat every hour and drinking at least every 15, 20 minutes, having a sip of juice or water. But I generally go with gut feel. I know when I'm starting generally to feel hungry. I like to eat. I get hungry. So as soon as I feel like I'm getting hungry, then I'll definitely start to eat a bit more. But I try to eat consistently throughout the whole time. Not necessarily having a huge meal at a water point, but just try to eat little bits the whole time.
And what advice would you give to beginners? You're obviously very experienced, and you know your body, and the first small sign that your body gives you, you probably pick it up very quickly. Somebody who's less experienced, what advice would you give to them? How to get used to eating and drinking? Do you think they should go out and do simulation rides or runs, or what would you suggest to a beginner how to train, or how to get that experience?
You're definitely going to have to do it. It's purely trial and error. You're just going to have to test it in training runs and even in races. And sometimes I might fail in a race, but I mean, you can't always test everything. You should try to test everything training, but sometimes it's not always possible. Sometimes in a race, you get to the water point and they've got stuff you've never tried or eaten before, and then you have no choice but to take it, and then it doesn't work for you. So then you can just make a mental note that I must not use that again. But it's definitely trial and error is the only way. And I mean, we've all learned the hard way. I've carted food along with me that I just couldn't stomach to eat in some races. So it's you learn, you live and learn.
So get some experience, trial and error.
Yeah.
Nicky, then let's talk about pre-race. So you're doing Cullen and Tonteldust this coming weekend, am I right?
Yes.
So today's Tuesday, we're getting close to like 3 days from race. Sorry to remind you. And people would now start thinking about carbo loading and things like that. Do you have like a carbo loading pre-race routine? Lots of Coke, no Coke, caffeine, no caffeine, pasta. Do you approach the 2-3 days before in a special or a different way to carbo load, or just do the normal whatever you eat?
No, I don't. These days I've got no sort of carbo loading routine. I just try to make sure I drink enough in the days leading up, so I'm not a little bit dehydrated when I start. And then I've got obviously my pre-ride routine, which I'm pretty meticulous about. What I eat before I start racing. But generally, as long as I'm eating and drinking before the race, I'm good to go on race day.
So let's talk about the race. And now you've got me curious with your reference to pre-race routine. Do you want to share that with us?
Okay, well, it's definitely my ultimate favorite is PVM's Millie Pop. This is a winner. I've been using this cheese for more than 20 years since I started the expedition adventure racing. That was our race food. You can eat it breakfast, lunch, supper. So I would usually have a portion of the Millie Pop with peanut butter. That's kind of my breakfast with coffee. And then maybe half an hour before the race starts, just depending on like if I'm driving or what's happening before the race. But I'll try have either gel or another bar, a PVM gel or bar just before the race starts. And then I know that I probably won't need to eat for at least an hour. I'll obviously keep sipping on my octane and drinking my octane and water, but I'll only probably start eating in the next hour after the race has started, and that works for me. It's not generally going to work for everyone, but it works for me.
And then Nicky, in terms of your race, you've got whether it's 60 hours ahead of you or 10 or 12 or whatever hours for an ultra or a short ultra in your case. How would you plan your nutrition? And we can take Tonteldust this Saturday as an example because it's so close. How are you planning your nutrition for that ride? So what are you planning to take? Do you know at this stage?
Okay, so I will starting off with I'll definitely have a bottle of octane, water in my bladder, probably I'll definitely carry gels and bars, and then I'll maybe chuck some chips or dribbles or something in my pack as well, just as emergency food. But the water points are actually pretty good at these races these days. PVM, thankfully, is one of the sponsors of Cullinan to do this. So they will obviously have their products at the water points, which is going to be great. So I'll definitely stock up with Octane at every water point. They usually have a good range of food as well. So I'll definitely try get bits and pieces of real food in at every water point, but definitely fill up with Octane every water point. And then I'll probably, depending on how I feel, I'll probably take gels maybe every 2 hours, but we'll see. I'm having a good day, a bad day, a fast day, a slow day. We'll go with how we feel, but yeah, it's also like knowing exactly how far the water points are, which we do know, helps a lot in the planning. So I know I should make it between each water point with one bottle of Octane. I won't need to carry extra like Octane mix in my backpack or anything. I should be okay.
And Nicky, then I'd be curious on something like a Munga or a Freedom Trail. These ultra running things, you don't have any water points at some of them. Do you carry everything with you? How do your logistics work? And you won't have enough PVM to like last you for maybe a day. How do you feel then if you got, let's say, 12 to 18 hours or ahead of you?
Yeah, so unfortunately, like I can't carry. Sometimes it's literally impossible to carry all the PVM I need for the entire event with me. So I have to rely on the water points when you get to them, and then take the freedom runs for example. There we relied a lot on spaza shops and farmhouses, whatever we could find. So whatever we found, we were very grateful to eat and drink. So thankfully, I can race on pretty much anything. I don't have. I'm not too picky and fussy. As long as I get something in me, I'm pretty much good to go. But especially like the mungas and stuff. When you start the munga, maybe I have enough of my PVM nutrition for maybe the first day, but after that, I just have to rely on what we get at the water points. But I mean, the water points are usually good. I haven't struggled too much. I always carry extra food with me, especially in those ultras. I always make sure I've got my extra Ziploc so I can pack food in. Yeah, the last thing you want to do is run out of food.
So how do you know when to eat and drink? Do you go on gut feel, or do you earlier you mentioned that you don't set timers, and you said you try and eat something every hour, but I found that sometimes if you go on a ride and you talk too much, and I'm not sure if you talk a lot or little, I'm sure your teammates would be able to give us some insights on that. But I find sometimes if I'm just too social, then after 2 hours I realize I haven't eaten anything. How do you make sure that you keep eating and drinking?
I so like I just have to try to remind myself. But I mean it has backfired. There have been times where I haven't eaten enough, and then you start to feel a bit bonky. But as soon as as soon as I eat again, and you eventually recover. But yeah, no, it is difficult. But I generally try and make sure I'm eating at least something every hour.
You've triggered something with me now, bonking. I mean, how do you have a recipe that you normally, when you feel, it's I'm feeling lightheaded and a bit queasy. Do you have like a secret recipe that you use to fix yourself quickly?
Well, I don't try to stuff myself, but I try to get as much food back in me as possible. The PVM Octane gels, these are lifesavers for me. These are like my secret weapon, or maybe now not so secret weapon. But these and when I felt like I started to bonk, these have saved many a day for me. These Octane gels. But like I say, as soon as you start to feel, well, I start to feel a little bit bonky. I definitely just try to get as much food in me, because you'll probably bonk more, but then you will recover. And then as the food digests and it goes in you, gets in you into you, then definitely start to recover.
And that's the gel you just
But that's
showed, I
happened
think, was the
before.
caffeine. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying I've bonked before it happens. We live and learn, like I say.
That was a caffeine gel that you just held up there. Do you have a preference for caffeine?
I generally choose the caffeine gels because most of my events are multi-day through the night with very limited time to sleep. So the caffeine definitely helps um, with staying awake, but also obviously it is also a stimulant, energy stimulant. So, but also I don't know. For me, it's the best tasting one as well. Sorry, guys, I like the chocolate one the most. But I definitely I choose the caffeine for the caffeine, and for the fact that it's got the caffeine in it for you.
And then Nicky, post race, your races are quite severe, but you do things like the hour or this backyard race which you did the past weekend, where you need to recover quite quickly. Some of them, I guess, are less important. How do you approach post race recovery?
So I do actually take my recovery quite seriously. Like if I train twice a day, I will always drink my reignite recovery drink after the first training session. And then this is a winning product, their protein XTR. I take this 3 times a week at night before bed. But recovery is key. I really focus a lot on my recovery. So like after freedom trip, like a freedom run, that's 6-7 days of kind of low intensity, I would eat pizza and drink beer straight after the race. But after Cullen and Tonteldoos, I'll definitely have my reignite as soon as I finish, within 45 minutes of finishing. And then the protein that night before I go to bed. But I religiously try to take the protein XCR 3 times a week for muscle recovery and maintenance. And then the reignite after racing, and if I'm doing double training sessions in a day, then definitely I use the reignite.
Thank you, Nicky. And then for amateurs that are doing maybe the 2-3 hour ride on a Saturday morning, how much recovery would you suggest people do after 2 to 3 hour ride, or is it probably not enough duration to actually do, have a big pizza and a beer after a Saturday morning coffee ride?
If you've ridden 2 to 3 hours, my opinion would be to have the recovery shake. I mean, you've worked your muscles for 2 to 3 hours, so you've definitely put them under strain. So in my opinion, I would definitely use it. If you've just done an easy 45 to an hour run, then probably not necessary. But generally, like anything over an hour and a half, 2 hours, I would definitely have a recovery shake.
Nicky, thank you very much for these insights that you've provided. The one thing which is stuck out for me is that you take your recovery very serious. Sounds like it's almost more serious than other parts, maybe because you're so experienced. But I suspect the lesson out of this is the level of activity that you are doing is perhaps above normal in terms of the number of races and the duration of those. Which would make complete sense then that recovery is essential to get you back into condition for the next week's training and the next week's race. So Nicky, thank you so much for making your time available and for providing these very useful insights. Thank you.
No, thanks so much for having me, Cole. I hope I helped.